What is up, you guys? If you're seeing this on YouTube, you guys are catching the live replay. I am currently live on TikTok. So if you guys are new to my YouTube channel, my TikTok page is at bjosic, so BJOSIC. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's at BarbaraJSC. If you guys want your own natal chart reading or progressed natal chart reading, all of the information for that is going to be in the description box below on my website underneath the readings tab. So let's see what questions the people have for us today. So when you have Uranus in the first house, basically that gives you the undertone of having an Aquarius arising, okay? So it's gonna make you very unique. It's gonna make you very much, you know, a little bit different from the crowd. I find Uranus in the first house people very interesting. They always are surrounded by interesting people, very non-judgmental. So it is impactful, absolutely. The Aquarius in there is going to be more so the generation because it is a generational planet. So it's an energy that you've incarnated into and you share it with other people within your generation as well. So Uranus and Aquarius, these people are going to rebel against anything that is, you know, when it comes to humanitarian issues, for example, right? They might kind of be like, why are we not talking about this? Let's talk about this, right? Or like they bring things to the surface. So it's a subset of the generation. I find a lot of Gen Zers have this, especially if you have Neptune and Aquarius as well. So you have that particular conjunction going on in there. But yeah, that's Uranus and Aquarius. It's your overall generation. And then in turn, because you have that karma, you guys are clearing it together, okay? And then you're clearing it for the collective as well. And then you're clearing it for your line as well. The first house affects you more, okay? So when you have Uranus in the first house, you know, you overall are going to be different and unique outside of the box. So as an Aquarius rising with Saturn and Uranus both be really important. I mean, Aquarius is ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. It's interesting. I have a video on Aquarius on my YouTube channel. It's called Everything You Need to Know About Aquarius Energy. And basically what I was saying in that video was like, okay, so Aquarius currently is ruled by Uranus, used to be ruled by Saturn, right? So, you know, when we look at that rulership, the Uranus aspect of Aquarius is, you know, rebelling against the norm, being different, being unconventional. Anything that the norm is, you're going to be different from that, right? Unique ways of thinking, unique ways of being, right? Especially if you have it, again, in your first house, Aquarius, right? Saturn is now restricting you, okay? So with Aquarius, I find that the Saturn rulership in there makes it, you know, it makes it feel very restricted when it comes to the mind, when it comes to your thoughts, when it comes to expressing your ideas and thoughts. That's where it kind of gets restricted, okay? Because Aquarius is kind of in those higher realms where none of these earthly things really exist, if you think about it, okay? So that's Aquarius, but it's down here. So down here, you're bound by Saturn in that way, right? Where it's like timing is a thing, okay? So you're gonna have to figure out when to pitch, you know, certain ideas. You, for example, might have been into astrology way back in the day, and nobody was, for example, let's say, and now everybody is, you know, it's stuff like this where it's like you're trying to figure out the timing of when to put your ideas. So if you have any sort of great ideas, my recommendation for Aquarius energy overall is to write it down and to see, right? You kind of have to play, right, that game to see when you can pitch these things. Welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. So feel free to comment below. Also, if you're new here, check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. And thank you for the likes, you guys. It gets the video out there so we can meet more astrology friends. Yeah, that's the whole thing with the Aquarius energy. It gets restricted in that way. It's bound down here, right? So there's certain rules on this earth plane that Aquarius doesn't necessarily like, right? Because it's interesting, Aquarius is before Pisces. Pisces is completely boundless, right? Like sometimes Pisces doesn't have any boundaries. That's why they struggle with that. But Aquarius is on the way there, right? So in some realms, you know, Aquarius is kind of like, why are there these restrictions? Why are all of these like energetic, you know, rules and bounds existing on this earth plane? Why does a relationship have to be this way? Why do I have to be bound in that way? Why do I have to take this binding agreement? That's all very much Aquarius, right? So it's like you're learning that Saturnian, you know, vibe, you know, that impact of feeling bound. So that's a struggle, right? Because it's like, again, in the higher planes and the vibrations, everything is boundless. Everything is very much you think it and it happens. Down here, not so much, okay? That's the struggle down here. Down here, it's all about time. Hard work is Saturnian. The earth is Saturnian, if we think about it for now, okay? It might change in the future, but for now, it's very Saturnian. So it's restrictive in this way. Things take time. You have to work hard. You have to climb. It's sometimes about connections. It's about, you know, more so who you know, not what you know. You said your Scorpio Mars pushes that Aquarius changeable energy far, like you're controversial. Absolutely. So if you have Scorpio and the combination with Aquarius, like that on its own is going to be very like, because the thing is with like Scorpio energy, like sometimes Scorpio wants to be controversial just to spark up an argument. Do you know what I mean? So combining that with the Aquarius energy, like it's very much pushing you forward in that way where it's like, I'm going to say what I think, I'm going to rebel completely, and it's fixed, right? So it's like your mind won't change. And then it's like sometimes Scorpio energy is going to shit disturb just to shit disturb, okay? There's that aspect of it because it's like Scorpio sometimes, it's like a power and control thing. Do you know what I mean? So they know they won't be affected by it, but if they're out there triggering other people, well, in a weird way, it's like sometimes entertaining to them, right? You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see Scorpio in combination with Aquarius, right? Because it's like, it's pushing that whole rebellion even further, you know? That whole like, you know, like I'm going to say it just to bother these people or upset these people. Sometimes it's not coming from a malicious point. I find that Scorpionic energy, because they see through people, they do it, I guess, for their own entertainment. It's really hard to explain. You said, yeah, that's the vibe with a 2 in there. So you will be stubborn, okay, with that energy. But honestly, Mars in the 10th house, very nice energy. Scorpio Mars, also very nice energy. Very opinionated. Absolutely. Fixed energy is opinionated, right? Because it's fixed in its opinions. And then the thing is also like Scorpionic energy overall is like, because they're intuitive, right? And they feel into things within their body, you know, because it resonates so deeply with them on that truth level, they're not going to budge, right? Because it's resonating with their whole being and that intuitive aspect. So it's like, you can't really change a Scorpio person's mind. The thing is, they already have their mind made up, even sometimes before they ask a person a question, you know? They already know. Sometimes they're just like doing it again for like this like fun type of thing that Scorpio does, just entertain themselves. Because sometimes like, it's interesting, out of all the signs, Scorpio is highly intelligent, but they can go into that trickster energy, right? Where it's like, again, that shit disturber energy. They can go into this just again because they're bored. Like, there's no other explanation for it. Like, it's just to entertain themselves because they're kind of like, sometimes when it's like the lower versions of Scorpio, they're kind of like, how is everyone so dumb and they don't see the things that I see, right? So that's the shadow of Scorpio sometimes has to be integrated. But it is what it is, right? So for that reason, because they can see through people, they can sometimes say things, right? To, you know, just stir up a storm is really what that is. I'm glad that that resonates. Sun Dog says Capricorn rising with 7 planets stellium in the first house with Aquarius intercepted. So is your first house intercepted? Capricorn rising with a 7 planet stellium in the first house with Aquarius intercepted. Where do you have your Aquarius intercepted? Is it intercepted in the first house? Welcome to all the people joining. I'm just answering astrology questions. I will get to everyone. I'm just going in order. So what I will say for people who have a stellium in the first house, these people are here to figure out who they are in this lifetime. It's all about your path in this lifetime. So a lot of the time, depends on the rest of the natal chart, but a lot of the time, if you have that congestion of first house energy, you could have had a past life or past lives where it was about other people, right? So you come through in this lifetime and it's now about you. It's about the self. It's about your path, right? So you might come off selfish to other people, but you're really trying to figure out who you are. Is really what that is. You said Aquarius intercepted in the first house. So this is where it gets interesting. So when you guys look at your natal chart, right? And let's say you guys have a rising sign, okay? In Sun Dog's situation, they have it in the Capricorn, right? So you're a Capricorn rising, but then you have Aquarius that's creeping behind the shadows and it's also technically occupying the first house, but it's intercepted, okay? So this adds a whole different layer to the story, right? Because it's like there's this aspect of you that even though, you know, you might come off traditional and hardworking and you want to climb the social ladder of success and you want money and you want wealth, there's this aspect of you that's Aquarius, right? That's behind the shadows, it's intercepted, it's hidden, right? So what happens with interceptions is like when you're growing up, the parents or whoever was around, they didn't acknowledge the energy, right? Or they didn't know how to, you know, accept it or express it, or, you know, they just were different, right? Like when you have Aquarius intercepted in the first house, like you yourself could be very unique, very ahead of the time, right? Maybe you had very linear parents and you're out here being completely different and unique and quirky, right? So that's there's that part of you that still wants to be expressed, right, in this unique way. You know what's interesting? Whenever I look at Capricorn going into Aquarius, the vibe here for me is very much like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen those movies where it's like the corporate CEO person of like a company, like let's say they're higher up in a company, they're off on like a silent meditation retreat. I don't know if I saw this in like a movie, but the clip that I'm seeing, and I always see for this energy, is like they're off in like the desert somewhere doing the silent meditation. Someone calls them with like a problem at the company, right? So that's kind of like that progression when I see Capricorn going into Aquarius, right? You're coming out of this like very linear way of being into something a little bit more unconventional and different compared to whatever the norm is. So that's the thing. So you having Capricorn rising, and then you have that first house stellium. It's like, the thing is with Capricorn people, a lot of the time they have a lot of struggles when they're growing up. There might have been a focus on money or lack of money or lack of finances. That's the thing with Capricorn energy, okay? Welcome everyone. I will get to everyone's questions. Oh my gosh, hey Derica. I'm just going in order. Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. It gets the video out there so we can meet more astrology people. Oh my gosh, I waved at someone. Hey, let's see what else you guys saying in here. Samantha says Aries midheaven, 11th Mars and Cancer in the first house. Okay, are you looking at maybe whole signs where your midheaven's in the 11th house? Mars and Cancer is a struggle. Every time there's been Mars and Cancer, there's been some sort of war, some sort of eruption, these types of things, okay? Because that's Mars and Cancer. Mars and Cancer is like a suppression of emotions, and then all of a sudden it like explodes. How are you, Derica? Thank you for the likes. Let's see. Should progress chart be read as bi-wheel? I'm not sure what bi-wheel is. You said you got that Aquarius energy y'all need. You said your progress midheaven went into Aries in the 11th house, and your progress Mars went into Cancer in the 2nd house. That's really interesting. So if it went into Aries, it used to be in Pisces. I mean, that's a nice progression, to be honest, because you're coming out of the Piscean dreams, and now maybe you're actually going to put those dreams and ideas into action. So that's a very nice progression. Mars going into Cancer, I mean, I don't know what to say. Mars, quote unquote, falls here because Mars is exalted when it's in Capricorn, okay? When it's in Cancer, it doesn't like to be in Cancer. This might make you a little bit more lazy or lethargic. But the thing is, it's like you could combat this energy. You just have to see how a Mars in Capricorn would act, and it would make you tired because you're constantly fighting against the energy. So that's the thing. It's like in your natal chart, right? Let's say you have the energies in there. It's like you could basically adjust to the positive aspects, right? To see, you know, like where am I lacking? What are my weaknesses? And how can I kind of balance these, right? But what I will say is it might make you tired because it's like it's constantly fighting against the energy that's in your natal chart, right? So Mars in Cancer is always going to want to chill, right? But the thing is, on this earth plane, that's not rewarded. So it's like if you have a goal or if you have an ambition, which is what Mars is, well, for you, it might be a struggle to go after that thing, right? It might be a struggle to actually put it into action. Or you might not feel like it. Okay, that's very Cancerian. Cancer is all about the feeling, right? The vibes. It feels off, right? This feels off. This timing feels off. I want to chill, right? That's Mars in Cancer. So it could go into being lethargic. So things like working from home could be very beneficial for a Mars in Cancer where you're not absorbing as much, right? Let's say you work at a job and you have to commute to that job, and then you're around people all day, and then wherever it is, right? Even if it's in an office, you're still around the employees or whatever, the colleagues. So all of that can be very like draining, right? So it's like if you work from home, you eliminate all of those issues like immediately. So you'll feel less drained because you can't turn it off. That's the struggle, right? You can't turn like that clairsentience aspect off. So you just kind of have to learn how to live with it and manage it. You said you do this stuff when you feel like it. Yeah, that's very much Mars in Cancer. Welcome to all the people joining. What should we talk about? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. Okay, Samantha, you said progress moon in Taurus in the 12th house. Okay, so for the moon progressions, the moon progresses every 2 years, okay? So with the moon progressing every 2 years, here's the thing. It's like, it's gonna kind of just tell you the era that you're in for that period of time, if that makes sense, okay? So when you're in the progressed moon in Taurus in the 12th house, it's like during this era in your life, so during these 2 years, okay, you're basically gonna be more about building, maybe working hard, getting the gains, you know, kind of building towards something, building towards some sort of goal, saving money, right? Getting nice things, maybe going on luxurious experiences, maybe going to luxurious restaurants, these types of things, okay? When it's in the 12th house, you might have a lot of maybe unconscious emotional things come to the surface during those 2 years, okay? So to be cleared, a lot of the time, moon in the 12th, yes, it's psychic as well, but it's also karmic, okay? And it's always connected to the mother. So maybe some things during this time, maybe the dynamic with the mother is being, reevaluated. Maybe you're seeing it from a different perspective and there's something there that needs to be healed or cleared. Okay? Usually moon in the 12th carries over the dynamic with the mother into this lifetime. That's moon in the 12th overall. So when you're in the progressed moon in the 12th, it's a similar type of vibe, right? You're clearing something, but at the same time, you're going to probably have a lot of psychic gifts come online. You're probably going to be maybe more intuitive. Maybe your dreams are going to be more vivid during this time. Maybe keeping a dream journal and like paying attention and seeing. You said you just realized how much your mother worries about money. That's exactly moon and Taurus in the 12th house. There it is. Okay, so that's that energy in action. Because moon and Taurus is really interesting because it's like moon and Taurus basically manifests one of two ways, right? It either goes in the positive direction or it goes in the shadow aspects of moon and Taurus, okay? I will get to everyone. I'm going in order. But the whole thing with moon and Taurus is like, okay, so the positive aspect is like, maybe the home was very financially abundant and there was a lot of abundance in the home and you were comfortable and these types of things, okay? But it could also go into the aspect where it's like maybe the mother was very materialistic, for example, or the shadow of Taurus is when she's stingy or operates out of like scarcity mindset and can be petty when it comes to money, right? So it's like maybe there was always commentary when it came to money. Things like, it costs this much, or we can't buy that for this monetary reason, or that's expensive, like all these subtle things that goes into your subconscious, right? So then the child that has moon in Taurus kind of grows up to be seeking that money, right? Because maybe there was a lack of it, or maybe you didn't have brand names, or again, it can go in the opposite direction where you're just like over it and you go in the complete opposite direction, right? Where you don't want to be like that, right? So it's one of two ways, really. Welcome to all people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts, and I'm going in order, so feel free to comment below. Tamron says, midheaven and Taurus, Jupiter and Mars. Thank you so much for the likes, you guys. Midheaven and Taurus, Jupiter and Mars in the 8th house. Leo first rising with Virgo North Node in the 2nd house. Okay, hold on. So you have midheaven and Taurus, and then you said Jupiter and Mars in the 8th house. So I'm guessing all of that is in Taurus in the 8th house. Then you said Leo first rising with Virgo, North Node, 2nd house. So Virgo is your North Node and that's in the 2nd house. So midheaven and Taurus is really interesting because basically what I was saying about moon and Taurus will apply to you, but in the career realm, right? So midheaven and Taurus is seeking money and wealth and status in that way, right? They want to build. They want to get the financial gains. And the thing is, everyone thinks that midheaven is just the career. It's not just the career. It'll tell you the vibe of the career, okay? So the vibe of your career is going to be something stable. It's going to be something financially stable. You might be really good with money overall to the point where it's like you might go online to teach people about money, for example, when you have the midheaven and Taurus. Because the thing is, for midheaven and Taurus, the whole vibe here is like the midheaven, because it's the 10th house, is going to be how you portray yourself to the world, right? So you basically want the world to perceive you as someone financially stable and knows about money, and maybe you know about investments and make this type of investment and that type of investment, to the point where maybe you're helping other people, right? Maybe with your social media pages, for example. It doesn't have to be just this, okay? Midheaven and Taurus could also manifest into like, people who post online, they go on this luxurious vacation and they have this type of watch and they have this type of house and that type of house and this type of car. Like that could also be midheaven and Taurus, okay? That's also midheaven and Taurus, right? Because that's the 10th house. It's what you're putting out there into the world. Whoops, I accidentally exited, but I came back. So he said Mars in Jupiter and Pisces in the 8th house. So Mars in Jupiter and Pisces. I mean, Jupiter and Pisces is a nice placement. That could be a spiritual teacher. It could, because Pisces used to be ruled by Jupiter. Mars and Pisces, here's the thing. Okay, so Piscean energy, this is the thing with Pisces. Like, I find that Pisces operates best when they're working with a team, okay? So it's like the Piscean person is the creative. So you might be into music, or you might be into art, or you might be into metaphysics. But it doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean you can't be independent. It doesn't mean you have to have a team. I find that this energy operates best in a team, right? Because it's like then you have this person working on the accounting, this person working on the marketing, this person working on this. You could do all of that yourself. So that's how you could balance the energy within, right? You could balance the energy within by, you know, balancing the aspect of yourself, because it's like Mars and Pisces. I've noticed these people can sometimes be like really dreamers to the point where they're cloud talkers every time. It's like, oh, when I have this and I do it like this, right? But I've also noticed with Mars and Pisces is that these people attract people into their life who are kind of executing the goal for them, if that makes sense. So, you know, it's best for these people to operate in some form of like either team or group or whatever it is, where it's like the Piscean person is the creative, right? It doesn't mean you have to have a team. You can just work on that aspect of yourself within yourself, right? So, you know, knowing that you could be too much into like the whole dreaming aspect of things, we'll figure out how to ground it and how to apply it, okay? That's Mars and Pisces, Jupiter and Pisces as well. So the thing is, when you have Jupiter and Pisces, you can make money through all of these things. So through film, through music, through like photography, all of these things could bring you through abundance. And then the 8th house, that's the money access. So it kind of seems like you're here to master money in this lifetime, okay? So the 2nd house is / Taurus energy is your own personal finances. The 8th house is other people's money, okay? So Jupiter in the 8th house could also activate abundance for themselves after some form of like union with a person. So it could either be like marriage, or it could be a long-term commitment of some sort. So it could be like common law or something of the sort, where it's a little bit more serious and a little bit more committed, okay? But again, it doesn't mean you have to be married to activate abundance. It could also be an inheritance. It could also be investors' money, right? So 8th house people work best when they're working with other people's money, okay? That's the thing here. So keep that in mind. And you said something else in here about your Virgo North Node in the 2nd house. Virgo North Node, so your Pisces. It's interesting because it's like sometimes when people have a Pisces North Node, Pisces, yes, sometimes when people have a Pisces North Node, okay? Pisces North Node is usually cleaning up the last few lifetimes, right? So your last lifetime could have been this, right? Because that's your South Node now. Your South Node is in Pisces. So in this lifetime, it's more grounded for you, okay? Maybe you cleared up whatever you needed to clear up. A lot of the time with Piscean people, it's like things that are like very crown chakra-esque, right? So maybe you spent a lot of time in your crown and escaping and dreaming, and it could be like this and it could be like that, kind of escaping reality, okay? That's Piscean energy. So the thing is, with the whole North Node, South Node thing, it's like South Node is something that you've mastered in a past life, but maybe you didn't actually get to complete it, right? Because you're basically here again, because there's something here that you want to complete, right, on a soul level. So with Pisces and the South Node in a past life, you could have mastered anything to do with like spirituality, for example. You could have a lot of spiritual knowledge. It could be this. You could have a lot of knowledge when it comes to like the metaphysical world, or just like film and theater and all these things, okay? That's Pisces in the South Node. So now, with the North Node in Virgo, you're grounding this, right? Virgo is grounding Piscean information in this lifetime. And then 2nd house, there's the money access again, okay? So this is kind of your life purpose in this lifetime, is to master money, right? Whether it's through your own personal finances with the 2nd house, because that is your overall life purpose. And then the 8th house, it could be other people's money. So let's say, for an example, it could be something like maybe, you know, through an investor, you have a project, and through an investor, you know, your project is successful, and then that's also helping you master your own personal finances. That's kind of how that access could play out, okay? But 8th house, the thing is, 8th house is always going to be other people's money. So you'll see these people, whether it's like even working in like, you know, like being a financial advisor or something of the sort. That's that 8th house, 2nd house access. And I will say also, a lot of billionaires have 2nd house, 8th house in their natal chart. Welcome to all people joining. Oh my gosh, I love it. Today's theme, there's always a theme in the chat. Today is Taurus, 2nd house, and 8th house. Let's see, I'm just going back up. I will get to everyone at the bottom. I'm just going in order here. Sophie says, you just started talking to an Aquarius guy, but you don't know his birth chart. You said you always attract Leo and Aquarius as friends and lovers. It's crazy. Is your Venus in Leo or Aquarius, or your 7th house, is it in Leo or Aquarius? Yeah, the sun sign's not going to tell us too much about the person, but he'll definitely be unique as an individual. Oh, do you? Yay! I'm so glad that that resonated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, you guys, check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks, and I started a 2nd YouTube channel, actually. It's called Barbara Talks Some More. So on that one, I'm going to be doing natal chart readings for like public figures. So through those readings, you guys can learn also more about your own natal charts as well. What makes certain signs attract you or attract to you? Okay, so you can look at your descendant, your 7th house, to see what's going on in there. You can also look at your Venus, okay? You'll see through this. You can also see Yeah, you can do that, because I was gonna say, if it's friends, you can look at your 3rd house or 11th house as well. If it's partners and lovers, you can look at your 7th house. If it's someone who's more committed and like a marriage partner, you can look at your 8th house. If your 8th house is empty, that's something that you've mastered in a past life. So what you guys can do in your natal charts, or just so you guys know, it's like, okay, when you guys have like an abundance of energy in one of the quadrants, right? So it's usually in the quadrants, okay? So you'll notice like there's gonna be like maybe, you know, one off that's not in the quadrant, but there's usually a quadrant that your planets are occupying. So it's either in that first, you know, to the 3rd house, or even like 12th house to the 3rd house, whatever, right? It'll always be in a cluster, okay? It doesn't matter though. Sometimes you'll have one off, maybe you'll have one that's like somewhere else. But overall, it's always gonna be operating like this, if you guys notice. So with that being said, okay, when you have an abundance of energies anywhere, right, you're mastering that in this lifetime. If you have something that's empty, okay, that means you've already mastered it. So it doesn't, basically like what that means is like you're not focusing on that thing in this lifetime. So the thing is like it might be empty from like the planets and placements, right? So you might not have any placements in there, but you're still gonna have a sign that occupies that house, okay? If you don't have a sign that occupies that house, it could be intercepted in the Placidus tropical system, okay? So with that being said, right, it's like there's still meaning here, right? Because it's like even if you have a sign, let's say in your 8th house, the 8th house is going to tell you a lot. If you have planets and placements in there, it's going to tell you even more, right? But if we look at the 8th house overall in everyone's natal chart, okay, it'll tell us maybe what kind of marriage partner you might have, okay? It could tell us about maybe some shadow traits you might have, depending on what sign you have in there, some unconscious things you might have to transmute. It could also tell us about how you express yourself sexually as well. I have a video on that on my YouTube channel as well in the miscellaneous playlist, okay? So that's what the 8th house is. It can also tell us about, you know, like what could be activated for you after marriage, for example. That's also the 8th house, okay? So depends what sign you have in there. If you have planets, that's even more, right? Like that's even more layers to the story. But everyone's gonna have a sign. If it's intercepted, okay? If it's intercepted, that means the energy is swallowed up in your natal chart. So what does this mean? It wasn't focused on when you were growing up. The parents didn't acknowledge it. So like, let's say, for example, you have that axis intercepted, okay? So every time there's an interception, it's on an axis, okay? So let's say you have the 2nd house and you have the 8th house intercepted in your natal chart. What does this mean? This could mean that money wasn't a focus in your home, okay? So you might have to work harder to learn about money, for example, okay, on that axis, because that's that money axis. Also, the 2nd house, okay, the 2nd house as well. This is another thing also for people who have an abundance of 2nd house energy in their natal chart. I know one of you guys message in there as well. The 2nd house also deals with your self-worth and your values, okay? So a lot of the time, your monetary ability and monetary gain is attached to your self-worth, okay? That's also that 2nd house. You might also struggle with self-worth if that axis is intercepted as well, okay? That's that 2nd house, 8th house axis. So that's the whole thing here, okay, to understand. So if it's intercepted, and then also what I've noticed in people's natal charts is a lot of the time, the whole thing that they're meant to learn on this earth plane, if it's intercepted, they'll have a lot of their like planets that are important, I guess, in their current life purpose in this lifetime, also intercepted. So you can also have intercepted planets. So let's say, right? Let's say you have your moon, I don't know. Let's say you have your moon and Scorpio in the 2nd house and it's intercepted, okay? When I would look at a chart like this, basically what this would signify to me is the whole emotional world and the dynamic with the mother is like vital, right? In this lifetime for you to maybe clear the karma, you know, transmute, whatever, right? Like whatever term you want to use. So that's the whole thing here with interceptions. And I've noticed a lot of time when people have a certain life purpose, it tends to be in these types of vibes, right? So it tends to be intercepted, or it tends to be something that's suppressed, or it might be the area that you struggle in. So you might see it in the Saturn as well, right? So it's really, really interesting to see. You said you were a millionaire in another life. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. We'd have to look at your entire natal chart, Dereka, to see. But from what I remember, you have a lot of scorpionic energy. So I guess it kind of balances. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Chiron and Aquarius in the 1st house. It's interesting. There's a lot of Aquarius in the 1st house, people. Okay. So Chiron is the area that you guys are healing through in this lifetime. It's the wounded healer, okay? So when you engage in that area, whatever you do, right, is going to feel healing on a soul level, okay? So what could this be for Chiron in Aquarius in the first house? It could be anything that's Aquarius-like. So maybe when you're helping people, or you're involved in some sort of humanitarian cause, or you're doing something like philanthropy-esque, right? That could be very healing for you. Or when you're sharing your ideas, or when you're connecting a lot of people together for a higher purpose, a higher mission. That could be very healing for you on a personal level. Now, what's interesting for you, Yasmin, is that it's conjuncting. I mean, I don't know if you're an Aquarius rising, and I don't know if you're in the room still, but let's say you are an Aquarius rising, then it's going to be conjuncting your rising, right? So what does this mean? Now this adds a different layer to the story. So for you, when you pick the self, okay, when you kind of let your Aquarius nature shine, right? When you're unique, when you're quirky, when you start some sort of trend, right? Whether it's a makeup trend or a hairstyle trend or a fashion trend or whatever it is, right? You start something new. That's now healing, right? For you on a soul level. Like this is more so on a soul level, right? The soul feels like soothed, right? When you got that Chiron in there. That's Chiron and Aquarius in the first house, okay? In the first house, Chiron in the first house, anytime you choose yourself, anytime you start something, it's healing for you. Anytime maybe you're in like a management role or a team lead role, or you're training someone or whatever, you're in a leadership role of some form, that's healing for you, okay? You're an Aquarius rising. Okay, good. So basically, yeah, anytime you let that Aquarius nature shine, right? That's the thing. Aquarius rising, sometimes they can struggle with being their unique selves, right? Because it's like Aquarius rebels, And it's interesting, like it's an interesting energy because it's like Aquarius is gonna want to start the trend, but they're never gonna want to be part of it, okay? So this is really, really interesting to me because it's like there's that rebellion nature, right? So I talk sometimes about how like the fixed energies in the natal chart, all of them, okay? Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, they all have a little bit of an ego. So the Aquarius ego is that, right? Being different, but then not wanting to be part of the crowd, okay? Starting the trend, but not wanting to be part of it, right? That's the whole thing. They want to be different. They always want to differentiate themselves. So it's interesting because it's like Aquarius people can be surrounded by a lot of people, right? Because a lot of people are going to resonate with you and they're going to resonate with your energy because again, you're non-judgmental. Like Aquarius rising people are non-judgmental, but at the same time, you might not feel like you fit with them. That's Aquarius rising as well, So anytime you're choosing yourself and paving your own path and doing your own thing, because Chiron's in there, it's healing for you, right? So let's see what else you guys saying in here. Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. Make sure you guys check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. Barbara Talks. And I have a second one that I just started, and that one's called Barbara Talks Some More. You said, hold on one second. Yes, Chiron conjunct Sun and Leo in the third house. This is interesting because it's similar to the Aquarius rising Chiron situation, okay? So when you have Sun and Leo, okay, Sun and Leo, and it's in the third house, basically here, on this earth plane, you want to be seen, right? Sun and Leo is like the star. And the thing is, for Sun and Leo people, if they're not like in that positive mood where they can uplift everybody, then they don't want to be around people, right? Because you're kind of used to being the entertainer, But the thing is like what the Sun and Leo person kind of has to learn is like they don't always have to be the one uplifting everyone, right? Because it could kind of turn into like you always feel like you have to be on, right? Like you always have to make a joke or make everyone laugh or whatever, like uplift everybody around you, right? That's something for the Sun and Leo person to kind of master, I guess. And the thing is, what's interesting sometimes for Sun and Leo people, because the Sun can deal with the father, is sometimes the father was narcissistic. That's what's interesting for Sun and Leo people, okay? Doesn't mean all of them, but sometimes this is the energy. Now, Chiron in here, okay? So anytime you're engaging in anything that is Leo-like, okay? So acting, performing, making people laugh, being on a stage, having your own channel. It could be anything that is like you teaching something, having your own business, as long as you're the front of the company. That is healing, right? That's how Chiron works. So wherever you guys have Chiron, you're healing through that particular sign. Yes, that's how it's being expressed. And then the area of your life. So third house, okay, is going to be your siblings. It's going to be the, local community people, okay? It's also going to be the written or the spoken word. So that could also be a huge part of your life purpose in this lifetime. Could be the written or the spoken word. writing and speaking, sharing something, you know, maybe sharing something you learned. Maybe it's going to be like poetry. With third house, I've noticed usually tends to be shorter form, okay, with them. So it could be short stories. It could be like poetry, like shorter, you know, shorter things, slogans, Twitter. Twitter is very much like a Gemini / third house type of platform, okay? I mean, I don't know now. Now they can like type paragraphs, but at least back in the day when it was like less characters, okay? Back in the day, very Gemini-esque, okay? Because it's like you have to fit your whole thought into those 140 characters. Don't even ask me why I remember that, the amount. But yeah, okay? So that's Twitter. So that's that Gemini third house energy, right? So that's the thing, you know, it's able to take a huge idea and put it into a sentence even, right? So you'll see them in marketing, you'll see them in PR, you'll see them in anything that involves people and networking, right? Because they'll get by in life based on their connections. Welcome to all the people joining. Hey, nice demon. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. It kind of depends what you want to know, right? And it depends like what kind of reading maybe that person is delivering. Is it a life purpose reading? Is it a reading about like, you know, your soulmates? Like it really depends. It's hard to say because there's so much, like you can literally use astrology for so many things. You can also use it to see how you can make money, for example, right? So it really depends what you're looking for, you know? Let's see what else you guys saying here. Your brother just introduced you to his new girlfriend and she's a Pisces Mars. No way. Red flags in birth charts when meeting new people. That's a good question. I don't know. It's hard to say once again, you know, because it's like something that might be a red flag to you might not be a red flag to another person, right? And it depends on your synastry. So it's like based on my natal chart, for example, I'll use myself as an example. Based on my natal chart, there's certain people that I meet that I know I'm not going to vibe with, right? Depending on what's going on in their natal chart. So I can't say it's a certain placement. Sometimes it's an aspect, right? Sometimes it's also knowing yourself, right? There's that aspect of it as well. So it's really, really hard to say. I'm going to say it depends on the synastry to see what's going on between the two natal charts, okay? And it depends what kind of relationship is it. Is it a romantic relationship? Is it a friendship? What are you guys trying to achieve together? Is it a business partnership? Right? So, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, it's true, right? Like, it really is that, you know, it's really hard to say, like, you know, I know, like, in terms of astrology, we joke around sometimes and people are going to be like, this sign is a red flag, that sign is a red flag, and then you have memes and you have all these things. But if you're actually going to look at natal charts, there's so many things, right? Like, there's so many things that are happening in a natal chart. And then, honestly, sometimes, like, something that might be deemed like a negative aspect for one person and they don't like that aspect, it could work for another person, right? For example, if we look at like Plutonian relationships, okay? I would say any Plutonian relationship is going to be intense and karmic, but maybe that's going to work for somebody else. So it's really hard to say. 10th house cusp in Scorpio, including Pluto in the 10th house as well, in the sign of Sag, where the 11th house starts. Okay, hold on. You have Pluto in the 10th house. So it's interesting. Pluto in the 10th house is an interesting placement because it's like your career can change a lot. You can change through your career and you can also change publicly, okay? So you know those people like who are in the public eye and like they go through like massive transformations, probably they have Pluto in the 10th house, okay? That's Pluto in the 10th house. But it doesn't have to be this. That's just one example. It's just one of the manifestations of it, okay? But it's like your career will probably change a lot and then you yourself are going to change through that, right? And then also because it is the public house, you could help other people, right? Also change and transform through that. So for example, Pluto in the 10th house could manifest into like, you know, those like weight loss people, right? Who go on like that journey, the transformational journey, and like maybe they record it. That's very Pluto in the 10th house vibes, you know? Maybe they post it online, other people see their journey, like they see them transforming, going through this transformation, and then maybe that person becomes like a personal trainer, for example, Pluto in the 10th house, right? But your career, like, and your public image is always going to change. And another thing, what's interesting with Pluto in the 10th house also is like, sometimes because it is that undertone, right, of Scorpionic energy, it's like what Scorpio does sometimes is like, sometimes they purposefully destruct, okay? So a good example of this would be like, okay, when we knew like Miley Cyrus when she was like Hannah Montana, right? And then she went from like that into like going into her extreme like twerking on stage era, right? That's very much like destructing the image that she had to bring through her new image, right? I'm just using her as an example because everyone knows who that is, right? So this is kind of like the idea, right? So the thing is, sometimes this energy can do it on purpose. Sometimes Scorpio builds things up, and the thing is like what I've noticed with Scorpionic energy, Plutonian energy, let's say even A house energy, it's like Scorpio as an energy, right? It's like it doesn't ever want to be in a box. So it's like sometimes it builds something up, right? Because it's interesting, it bounces off a Taurus, right? So that builder vibe is there. So they can build something up and then they're like, wait, no, the ego comes in, right? The Scorpionic energy can deal with the ego. The ego comes in and it's like, I don't want you to identify me with that. I'm not that, I'm this. And then they destruct that. And then they build this new thing, right? That's that Pluto vibe. Pluto goes through. So it's like, whatever house you guys have Pluto going through is destructing that house. A lot of changes, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, right? I will say eventually it could come to some form of like neutrality, but Scorpio, when it's kind of like trying to harmonize itself, it goes through that extreme, right? It's like this. It's like literally like the wrecking ball. Hey, fairy goddess. Oh my gosh, how are you? What's going on? Let's see. Should you embody the sign of your 6th house of daily activities or routines? That's a very good question. That's an interesting question. I'd have to think about that. I'm just going back up. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? You're welcome. You said your Chiron is also conjuncting your Mercury, Neptune, and Venus. Yeah, so you're healing through all of that, okay? It's interesting. So is all of that in Aquarius in the 1st house for you if you're still in the room? Sundog says 6 degrees Venus from ascendant is a conjunction. I always look at it as if it's in the same sign. It's a conjunction, especially if it's in the same sign and in the same house. So Taurus in the 8th house, interesting. So Taurus in the 8th house is an interesting one, okay? So we were talking about the 8th house energy earlier. I don't know if you're still in the room, but when you look at the 8th house, right, and you have a sign in there, a few things you can learn from this, okay? So having Taurus in the 8th house, you know, for example, after you get married, if you want to get married, if it's, let's say, you know, maybe common law or maybe some sort of long-term commitment, okay? If you have Taurus in the 8th house, you're going to actually activate, let's say, luxurious experiences for yourself or money of some sort, okay? But it's more so personal finances. Maybe after you kind of get into this union or unit with a person, right? That's more so serious because the 8th house is more serious, right? So the 7th house is your relationships. Yeah, sometimes it can tell you about your spouse, but the 8th house is more so like on that intimate level. It's the merging of energies, right? So when you have Taurus in the 8th house, it can tell you this, right? You could maybe make money after this union. Although what I will say though for Taurus in the 8th house, a shadow aspect here is maybe the partner could be petty when it comes to money. Okay, so keep that in mind. There could be that as well. So it could go either in the positive direction or in the negative direction of Taurus. But that's the overall vibe. Taurus in the 8th house is a nice placement for luxurious experiences get activated, right? Maybe you and your partner go to, I don't know, Michelin star restaurants and on this type of cruise and on this type of vacation, and maybe you start buying, you know, like these types of bags and clothes and all the brand name things, right? That's Taurus in the 8th house. So that's how you guys can see. I think I have a video on that on my YouTube channel. I definitely had one on my TikTok, but I'm pretty sure I have one on my YouTube channel about what gets activated for you after marriage and long-term commitment. Actually, I do. I'm pretty sure that I do. It's going to be under the miscellaneous playlist. And then that's going to be depending on what you have as the sign in the 8th house, okay? That's that. And then another thing also for Taurus in the 8th house, it can also tell you about how you could express yourself sexually as well. So I also have a video on that on my YouTube channel as well. That's a separate video, okay? So yeah, that's the overall idea. Oh my gosh, nice. That is so awesome. I hope you enjoy your vacation. How long are you going for? You said you love your Capricorn Venus. Yeah, it's a very nice, like, grounded placement, Capricorn Venus. Let's see. And I find, like, Capricorn anywhere is always real because it's like Capricorn energy always feels like the time gets wasted, so they don't waste time. You know what I mean? So it's a nice energy. Pisces, 2nd house, and Placidus, Aquarius, 2nd house in the whole sign, what to believe. So I always get this question, whole sign or Placidus. It's really hard to say because you really have to listen to your own intuition and resonance. That's the only way I can put it for whole sign versus Placidus, okay? Because if you look at Pisces in the second house and Placidus, that's a completely different story compared to Aquarius in the second house and whole sign, right? Because it's like the second house is going to tell you about how you make money, right? It's going to tell you about your self-worth, your values. Okay, that's all second house types of things. So it's like if you have Pisces in there, well, in that case, you can make money through Pisces-like things. It could be through metaphysics, maybe astrology. It could be through maybe psychic work. It could be through creative work. It could be through film or theater or like photography, like wedding photos or like these types of things, okay? Making videos, those like little montages, right? With like the music and the vibe. That's all Pisces in the second house. That's very different than Aquarius in the second house. Aquarius in the second house could make money through Aquarius types of things. That's your mind now more so, right? That's going to be your ideas. It's going to be humanitarian things. It could be astrology as well. Yes, it could fall into this. What else? It could also be technology, okay? It could be maybe the fashion industry. Aquarius in the second house could be anything innovative. Maybe you think of an invention and you make money off of it. So it's very different, right? So the only way to know, I mean, as just a suggestion, right, is to see in the systems, right? Look at your IC, and then look at your descendant, and then look at your midheaven, and then look at your ascendant. I did that wrong, but it's ascendant, descendant, IC, and midheaven, right? That's going to be different in the two systems. So it's hard to say, right? Because again, only you'll know which one of those two resonates with you more. Now, if you want to know even more in depth, you'd have to look at transits and you'd have to look at like events that have taken place in your life, right? To see which one resonates with you more. But the ascendant, descendant, IC, and midheaven axis is going to give you a pretty good indicator, right? Because it's ascendant's who you are, you know? Your descendant is who you attract. And then your IC is your home life. And then your midheaven is how you're presenting to the world. So that's going to be different in the two systems. And the thing is also like, hey, Soraya, how are you doing? You're welcome. Yeah, so that's the whole thing, okay, with Placidus. Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. That's the whole thing with Placidus versus whole sign, you know? And sometimes, like, the whole sign ones throw me off a little bit because sometimes in a whole sign, like, the midheaven can be either the 9th house or the 11th house because the way that I learned astrology is the highest point of the chart is the 10th house, right? So, yeah, and then sometimes their IC can be, like, in the 3rd house. So that's the whole thing. But again, it depends which chart you resonate with most because it also depends like what are you trying to achieve with your chart, right? Are you actually trying to do predictions? Because if you're trying to do predictions, then you have to again sit down and see what happened when I was this age. Did that align with all the transits? What happened at this time? Did that align with all the transits? So there's that. You said with Placidus, you have an enormous 1st house and 2nd house because you're from North. Oh, thank you, Derica. Thank you. You're awesome. Yes, if you guys are interested in your own natal chart reading or progressed natal chart reading, you guys can find that on my website. If you guys are watching the YouTube live replay, it'll be in the description box below. On TikTok, it's going to be in my bio. You can go under the readings tab. It's going to pop up the window. It's going to be an email. You guys can send me an email and then we can go from there. Venus and Scorpio in the 5th house. That's an interesting placement because Scorpio in the 5th house, if you have Scorpio overall occupying your 5th house, this could be what kind of children, like what your children will be like. So for example, Scorpio in the 5th house can be like secretive children, right? Or children that make you go through a huge change when you have Scorpio in the 5th house. Now Venus and Scorpio, this is an interesting placement because Venus quote unquote falls here, okay? Because it's, you know, ruled by Libra and Taurus. So when it's in Scorpio, it's falling, okay? I mean, it is what it is. Venus and Scorpio, I find they're very good at making money and also getting like luxurious things. I've noticed a lot of people who maybe have companies or public figures tend to have Venus and Scorpio. So there's that. Your 7th house is Capricorn. So that's interesting. That could be an indicator of what kind of people you attract into your life. 7th house in Capricorn, that means you're probably a Cancer rising. Your 1st house is in Cancer. So the whole recommendation in astrology for Cancer rising and 7th house Capricorn people is if you're looking to get married, to wait until after your Saturn return, okay? Because The thing is, the Cancer ascendant person is always looking for a traditional relationship, okay? And when you have your 7th house in Capricorn, you're going to attract people into your life that are more mature, okay? Or more like financially stable and successful, and maybe they're older. It doesn't have to mean older though, okay? So keep that in mind. Because sometimes we think older means more mature. It doesn't always mean more mature, okay? It's just someone who's more financially stable and just like mature overall, right? That's 7th house in Capricorn. Your Saturn return is usually around the age of 27 to 30. Okay, sometimes it's 28 to 31, depending on where you have your Saturn. So I'm sure if you go on Google and you type in Saturn return calculator, it'll tell you when your Saturn return is exactly, okay? So it's basically when Saturn comes back into the sign that you have it in. So let me know what sign you have your Saturn in. That's gonna tell us when your Saturn return is gonna be. Basically what happens during a Saturn return is you go through a lot of changes, and I find that you kind of get placed on your path. Like the first Saturn return, at least. The first Saturn return is basically the time, the way that I see it is you kind of start entering adulthood, okay? The second Saturn return, you can kind of look at it as you entering like that next phase of your life. Maybe if you had kids, the kids left the nest, you're now kind of going back into, you know, figuring out who you are as a person, what you're into, like outside of maybe the family unit if you had a family. So that's that, okay? And then the last one is like the elderly, if you do live up until that age, right? That's gonna be around like 84-ish, I believe, okay? It happens about every 27 years or so. You said technically your Saturn return is right now, you feel the changes. Yes, oh my gosh, you're going through Saturn and Pisces in the 10th house, yeah. So Saturn in Pisces, and it's in the 10th house. You're going through career changes during this time. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. 0 degree Neptune Aquarius, 29 degree Jupiter Aquarius. What house do you have that in? Why are Pisces placements so non-committal? Because it's so interesting. I was saying at the beginning of this live, like Piscean energy, you can look at Pisces as boundless, right? They also don't really have boundaries sometimes. And then they also have to like learn their own boundaries as well. So, you know, it's interesting because it's like when we look at the signs, right? You have to look at everything as the energy pouring into the next sign, right? So by the time we get to Pisces, it's kind of taken a little bit of the entire energy, right, from everything. And if we look at the energy preceding Pisces, it's Aquarius. Aquarius is overall detached. Doesn't mean all of them are detached. Doesn't mean they're all going to be non-committal. It's just like they kind of have to find relationships that work for them. So Pisces can be non-committal, but sometimes I find Piscean people can also be like overly enmeshed as well, right? Sometimes they can kind of go into codependency and really merging to their surroundings and maybe fear of being alone, for example, okay? That's Pisces, but they could be non-committal as well because it's like it's boundless, right? Because if you look at Aquarius, which is preceding Pisces, it's like the Aquarius energy wants to be able to do whatever they want to do, right? They don't want to be bound by anything or anybody. Then you have Pisces. Pisces is water, right? If you look at water, there's no beginning and there's no end. It all just flows into the next thing and into the next thing and into the next thing. So there's that. There's also like the karmic aspect of it as well. So it's like Pisces, Neptune, and 12th house people have a lot of karma to clear with a lot of people. So maybe unconsciously, they're aware of this, unconsciously without realizing. And for this reason, they're kind of not committing because they almost know that there's maybe another person that they have to clear karma with, for example, and then another person, and then another person. Depends more so like where do they have Pisces and these types of things. So those could be a few reasons why. Soulmate indicators, you can look at a few things. Moon to moon, okay? So if you're looking at synastry, moon to moon could be soulmate, moon to Venus could be soulmate. If you have something maybe in the partner's 7th house, it's hard to say, right? Because it's like, what is a soulmate, right? It could literally be anybody. Like, and also like these days, you could even look at it as just someone who's part of your soul group. Is it a romantic soulmate? Is it a friendship type of soulmate? Is it a family like soulmate? You know what I mean? I know traditionally people talk about soulmates as romantic, right? But it's like soulmates can also be people that are just part of your soul group as well, right? Kind of people that feel like home, right? Like soul family. You said what house system is the most accurate? Similar answer all the time, right? You have to see what resonates with your chart and what are you using that chart for, and like Are you going to be doing divination with it? And are you going to be doing predictions with it? And then do your predictions come true? That's what I can say, right? Like I use tropical Placidus because that resonates with my chart the most. So if you're going to be reading for people, well, you know, you can't read on like a chart that doesn't resonate with yours, right? I've tried doing some whole sign readings like way in my early stages, and it's like they didn't really resonate with me, right? So it is what it is. And then if we look at like sidereal, okay, there's sidereal, there's so many of them now. There's sidereal, there's also Babylonian astrology. There is, yeah, the Placidus system, like the tropical Placidus. I don't know. It's like what I like about sidereal is I like that sidereal has all the different charts, like the D9 and D this and all of this. But sometimes when I tap into sidereal, it feels very ancient to me. Like energetically, like I don't know how to explain it, like very ancient almost. Like it is ancient, but almost like some, to the point where it's like maybe some of those things don't really apply anymore, if that makes sense, right? Like it doesn't necessarily apply in this day. And then I find sidereal is very focused on like relationships and marriage, right? Because they actually used to use that particular natal chart to find their spouse, right? To see what's going to be activated in the charts. So it's good for that, right? So it's like the different systems are good for different things is really what that is. The Placidus system is a little bit more simple. Some people are going to say like in the Placidus system, the constellations aren't where they're supposed to be. In the sidereal one, they are. I don't know what to tell you, right? Because it's like, again, it comes back down to like, are you doing predictive astrology? Okay, well then you have to look at all of the events. And then the aspects are going to be similar. Like the way that I always saw it was like, okay, currently Pluto is in Capricorn, right? In sidereal, everything is shifted up one. So in sidereal, Pluto is right now in Sag. So it's like, okay, if I were to do divination, I'm going to go and see what happened last time Pluto was in Capricorn, right? The sidereal people are going to go see last time Pluto was in Sag, and we're probably going to come to the same conclusion, right? So I think the information is available and accessible to us for a reason. I think there's truth in everything, but I think you need to do a lot of research to see what resonates most, right? Before you can come to a finite, like, this is the only way, right? Oh, thank you. Hey, Estra, I'm going to get to you in just a second. You said you think Placidus is more accurate because it's more detailed. Interesting. Interesting. I don't know. There's explanations for everything in all the systems, right? Because it's like, if you look at whole sign, for example, right? And then there's that layer of the story too, right? There's whole sign. And then you have whole sign in sidereal too, which is something that I recently discovered actually. So it's like, if you look at Placidus versus whole sign, well, it's like in a whole sign, all of the signs occupy a house. And then in Placidus, if they don't have a house, well, then that has a meaning too. And then I found that that has resonated with people as well. So it's really hard to say. Okay, I'm just going back up. Let's see, where was I? Oh my gosh, Fairy Goddess, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, it's going to be nice for you to be in the sun. Absolutely. It makes such a huge difference. Okay, thanks so much for the likes, you guys. It gets the video out there so we can find more astrology people. If you guys are new here, check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. I have Barbara Talks. I just started a new one called Barbara Talks some more, okay? So on that one, I'm going to be doing celebrity / public figure natal chart readings, okay? That's going to be on that one. And then if you guys want to know more about your own natal charts and just like all the astrological, metaphysical things, that's on Barbara Talks, okay? And then if you guys want your own natal chart reading, it is going to be on my website. Watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description box below. On TikTok, you guys are gonna have to go on my bio, okay? And then it'll be on my website underneath the readings tab. Saturn and Moon conjunct in the 4th house Aries, and it's intercepted. So this is really interesting because it's like Saturn, father, Moon, mother, okay? Traditionally, if it's not, you know, traditional, then you look at the dominant feminine role in your life and the dominant masculine role in your life, okay? Maybe it's the grandma, maybe it's the grandpa, whatever, right? But you look at these people, okay? So it's interesting because when you have 4th house in your natal chart, Moon in the 4th house, super clairsentient, okay? Psychic gifts and abilities come from the mother, okay? You have basically inherited these clairsentience abilities from the mother, okay? Saturn in the 4th house is interesting because now the roles could be reversed, right? So that's interesting, you know, because it's like now the mother could have taken on the father role, or maybe you were actually raised by a grandparent, Maybe you were, right? So it's interesting that I said that, right? I always find that interesting because it like rolls off my tongue, but it literally could have happened this way. Or it could have been like maybe the mother was working all the time, or maybe it was like a single parent household, right? Or maybe the mother took on both roles, or maybe it wasn't single parent, but maybe the mother took on both roles of mother and father. Maybe the father was just off doing his own thing, for example, right? Maybe he was working or whatever. It could manifest so many different ways, but that's the overall vibe. Now, what's interesting here is it's in Aries, okay? So moon in Aries is here to start some form of new emotional cycle, okay? So you're here to basically start something new for yourself, and then for the family line, and then it's for you on a soul level, okay? So you'll notice moon in Aries is kind of like that baby that's learning how to walk, right? Starts, stops, you know? Start something, falls down. Start something, falls down, right? But it's persistent. That's the thing with the Aries energy. Like, it's going to keep going, right? So my recommendation for Aries people is always to, you know, actually pick some sort of project that you want to focus on, is really what that is. Because Aries people in the future probably go back and think to themselves, oh my gosh, if I continue that project, where would I be today? Because it drops a lot of things. It's very good at starting, not so good at continuing, okay? And now this is karmic. It's connected to the father. It's connected to the father and the mother, but because it's in the Saturn, this is the area that the father restricts, okay? Or whoever took on the dominant masculine role in your life. So the area that's restricted for you is that Aries area. So it's the area of independence. So what's interesting actually for moon and Aries people is it can manifest two ways, okay? It could either go in the way where it's like you're fully able to be your independent self and do your own thing and be your own person. Like, it can either go in that direction, okay? Or it can go in the way, especially moon in Aries, it can go in the way where the mother doesn't allow you to have your own independence, or she kind of like, you know, like really sees you as an extension of herself, for example. When you have moon in Aries, where it's like the child really wants to separate, right? Like, you want to have your separate identity. So it could even be something like, I don't know, maybe the mother wants you to be a doctor, and maybe she was a doctor, but it's like you want to be, I don't know, a bus driver, for example. Let's say it's this, right? So it's like there could be, you know, the challenge of separating the two, okay, when you have moon in Aries, because Aries moon wants to be independent. So it could go in this way, especially because you have it in the 4th house. There's karma with the mother here, right? And then on top of that, it's intercepted, right? So it's like the energy is even more hidden. You know, it's even harder to see. It could be even more covert. Maybe there's codependency, for example, right? So maybe there's like a codependent dynamic, or like emotionally like incestual even with the mother, okay? And that could be because of maybe the lack of the father role in your life. Let's see, you said interesting, your mom wants you to stay close in proximity, but your stepdad encourages expansion. Yeah, that's sometimes a thing. So it's interesting because it's like, I don't know how to explain it. I find that sometimes it comes from a few different things. I find it can come from maybe the mother and child not spending enough time when they were growing up. So it could maybe come from like a guilt type of vibe, like unconsciously. So it could be this, or it could also go in a direction where it's this extension, right? Where it's like, again, she sees you as an extension of herself, or it could be from an abandonment type of thing. So if you have moon in the 4th house, right? It could be like, you know, the thing is moon in the 4th house, like that energy carries abandonment energy within them. So either in this lifetime you were abandoned in one way, shape, or form. Maybe, usually I find with 4th house it's emotional abandonment, or it's like emotional neglect, right? So it could be that, okay? Or, right? Or this energy could just go into like, again, the mother doesn't want to be abandoned. Maybe you unconsciously pick up on that from the mother. Maybe the roles are reversed in this way where you're kind of holding space for the mother. Like, there's always something here that's taking place, okay? It's always with the mother. Like, that's the whole thing to understand. You said you're growing up with grandparents in another city for 4 months every year and your parents work. There you go. So your parents have been together for 26 years. That's very good. Yeah, moon conjunct Saturn is like the parents can be on the same page. So that's moon conjunct Saturn. It's like, it's harmonious in that way when you have moon conjunct Saturn compared to, let's say, moon opposite Saturn, right? But moon conjunct Saturn, it could be this, where it's like the parents are on the same page about raising you. There isn't too much of like a difference in opinion. There could be this vibe as well. You said you have Cancer rising. I think you were answering me way earlier. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You're welcome. Your Saturn is in Gemini. Okay, so you're not going to go through your Saturn return for a while because we're in Saturn Pisces, then it has to go into Saturn in Aries, and it has to go into Saturn in Taurus, and then it's going to be your Saturn return. So you're probably in your early 20s. Let me think. Saturn is in Pisces. Yeah, you're going through a square right now, so maybe you're around 21. Let's see. It's near Venus and you suggested you might meet someone. You'll be sure to update me next week. Yes, keep me posted what ends up happening. Let's see. What else are you guys saying in here? Virgo rising, are you still in the room? Okay, Rafa, if you're still in the room for Virgo rising. Virgo rising, what I'm going to say is it depends what's happening with your 12th house, okay? Because if you have Leo in the 12th house, which is usually, not always, okay? Sometimes you might have Virgo in the 12th house if you have an interception, okay? But usually if you have Leo in the 12th house and you have a Virgo rising has this like royalty vibe connected to them, okay? So it's like unconsciously you behave like a Leo. You want everyone to bow down. You kind of feel like you're walking on a red carpet wherever you go. In a past life, you could have been royalty, so you carry that energy within you. That is Virgo rising, okay? Virgo rising is very hardworking. I will say that much about them, okay? They're very grounded, they're very practical, logical. They'll get the job done, right? Very competent. What I've noticed with Virgo placements is a lot of the time, Virgo energy in a natal chart, okay, ends up manifesting because that child, when they were growing up, I mean, this is just from my own observations, but Virgo is very competent, okay? So the whole question is like, why are they competent? Well, a lot of the time what happens with them is like, the parents are kind of maybe busy doing their own thing, and it's like they kind of see that the child is competent. So a lot of the time the Virgo person ends up kind of being left to their own defenses to kind of, let's say, make their own lunch, for example. Right? Like maybe the mom or dad or whoever taught you, this is how you do the lunch. And now because you did it so well and it's competent, it's like you're the child that the parents don't have to worry about. That's kind of the vibe. Okay, maybe you were really good in school. Maybe you were the golden child. Maybe then you were like very like career oriented, like whatever, right? That's the whole thing. The whole thing, and what's interesting also with Virgo energy is they struggle with control, okay? So I've noticed with them, it's like they always want to have a routine and a schedule because it gives them a sense of control, right? So sometimes you want to switch those vibes up a little bit just to and like allow new energy to come through, right? Because it's like they can get too much into like the routine day to day. Okay, I'm waiting for the weekend. Okay, this, I'm waiting for the end of the day, like whatever, right? So sometimes you want to switch it up because when you switch it up, maybe you'll make a new friend or maybe you'll discover a new class and it'll kind of throw you into like a different energetic vibration, if that makes sense. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Opinion on Libra Sun, Aquarius Moon, and Libra Rising. Can you tell me if your Sun is in the first house or is it in the 12th house? I'll get to you in just a second. I'm just going in order. Oh, you said up here. You said Sun, Jupiter, Mars in the 12th, Virgo, but you're a Libra Rising. Wait, but down there, I think you said you had your Libra, unless you were asking for somebody else. Let's see. What else are you guys saying in here? Moon in the 8th house. So Moon in the 8th is interesting also, because Moon in the 8th house is kind of like, I hate using the term exposing because it kind of seems like they're, you know, doing this whole like investigative expedition. It's not this. It's sometimes just happening like by them becoming aware of a trait, right? So Moon in the 8th is usually like bringing to the surface, maybe that's a better term. They're bringing to the surface maybe some sort of pattern the mother had or the maternal line. If it's not the mother, it'll be the dominant feminine role in your life, okay? Or like the feminine line overall. Maybe it'll be the grandma, like within the feminine line, okay? If it's not within the feminine line, it could be within the father's feminine energy, okay? It could be this as well. So Moon in the 8th, these people are bringing to the surface some form of codependencies, okay? Emotional neglect, emotional manipulation, covert female or feminine manipulation, okay? People who operate in the feminine energy, that's usually maybe like a pattern within the line on the feminine side. So for example, like let's say, I don't know, like maybe there was an emotional manipulation tactic from, if it's not the mother, maybe again, it was within the feminine line. Maybe it was the grandma and her mom and whatever, right? So maybe there was some form of emotional manipulation tactic that you are kind of like, I'm not feeding into that, right? Like it's things like this. It could be like this, you know, like something that you're changing the pattern, right? It could be codependency, for example. It could be separating from the mother, okay? It could be addiction of some sort. When I say addiction, that's not a range, okay? So it could be shopping, spending money all the time, scrolling. It could be, I don't know, checking people's social media, whatever, right? It could be this, okay? Or it could be more extreme. It could be alcohol. Sometimes with Moon in the 8th, it could be substances with Moon in the 8th. What I will say though, for sure you're a medium, okay? For sure you have psychic gifts and abilities. So it's gonna be a matter of honing into that, okay? And you also are an Aries moon. So probably everything that I said for the other Aries person is gonna resonate with you. You said your sun is in the 12th house, but you're a Libra rising and your first house is empty. Yeah, so, okay, here's the thing for sun in the 12th house, okay? Sun in the 12th house, people, I have a whole video on this. Oh yes, fairy goddess. Yeah, my Saturn return was really interesting because I was trying to fight it. So I was trying to be like, no, I'm not going to be affected by it. And then it just like, I guess made it more, I don't want to say made it harder, because at the end of the day, like I'm just at the point where it just is what it is. Like I'm just very accepting of everything. But looking back, I could have been maybe less like trying to fight it. You know what I mean? Because I was like, this isn't going to affect me. I'm still going to do what I want. I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to do that. And then I look back and I'm like, that was intense. Like, would I do it again? No. I wouldn't, right? But would I say to people, oh, you should fear your Saturn return? No, I wouldn't say that either, because at the end of the day, you don't have a choice. You have to go through it anyways. But yeah, it was definitely really interesting. It was a lot of shakeups. It was a lot of like transformation, absolutely. And I definitely felt it putting me on the adult path, right? So that's why when I speak on Saturn return, I really feel like this is the time when you come out of what should be extended adolescence, in my opinion, right? I heard that from somebody else a long time ago. They talked about how adolescence should be extended because we're living longer. I think your adolescence, quote unquote, should go until your Saturn return, or up until the time your prefrontal cortex is developed, which happens to coincide with your Saturn return, right? Because you literally feel the change. Like when my prefrontal cortex developed, I literally started seeing the world differently. I really did. Like I literally like saw it differently. And then on top of that, the Saturn return happened, and it's like you, again, you know, it really puts you, and I also kind of see it as like your solar plexus building as well. Like you really develop your identity around that time. So yeah, I mean, it was fine. It is what it is. Let's see. Okay, so sun in the 12th house. Okay, I have a video on this on my YouTube channel. And what's interesting with sun in the 12th, I've noticed a lot of singers have this, or like motivational speakers, but I've noticed a lot of singers have sun in the 12th, and then they tend to have Mercury in the 12th as well, because it kind of gives them that singing voice. If it's not this, maybe it's poets also. Like I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I ever looked his natal chart up, but also who gives me like very much 12th house energies, Van Gogh. Because you know how he, like, do you guys know how he cut off his ear? He to me is very 12th house vibes, okay? I don't remember if I looked up his natal chart. I feel like if I did, I don't know if he was 12th house, but I'll look it up after this live. But he's very 12th house energy to me, okay? Anyway, so it's the artistic people. It's going to be the people who are metaphysical, who are connected to the other side, the people who are psychic, the people who are intuitive. That's all 12th house, right? So that being said, you're open, okay? You're energetically open. Your crown is open. You're always receiving things, okay? So what I say for 12th house people is like, you definitely want to figure out how to be grounded. And I actually have a video coming out on that, but that might not be for a while because I'm now editing my chakra series. But the thing is, you want to figure out how you can be grounded as a 12th house person, okay? So how can you be more in your body? So 12th house people want to be out, right? But you want to focus on grounding. So 12th house people, you'll see them, okay? Or Neptunian influence or Piscean influence as well, okay? They might be interested in substances or leaving their body, or just curious, like, how does that feel? Like, what does it feel like, right? So that's 12th house. You might have an interest for all these things. You're going to be interested in astrology, probably anything like that's hidden, right? That's 12th house. So 12th house sun, going back to the singer thing. So 12th house sun, like what I've noticed with these people, you know, I don't know if this is a thing. This is just something that I've noticed over time. Like, I kind of feel like, because it's like what I was thinking was the 12th house sun person, kind of to me at least, feels like it's a last lifetime, because to me feels like this person is clearing a lot of karma with a lot of people at once. Do you know what I mean? That's why they end up in these positions where they are dealing with a lot of people at once. If it's not like a public role, it doesn't have to be public. It can just be you know, change your job a lot and you meet a lot of people in this way, okay? So I used to think about that, and I'd be like, it kind of feels like these people are last lifetimers to me. But these days, I kind of feel like anyone can choose for it to be their last lifetime. I don't know if that's true either. That's more so like psychic and just intuitive insights. So I don't know, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but that's kind of how I always felt into it. Because to me, once again, it kind of felt like they would clear a lot of karma with a lot of people. But the whole thing with 12th house is like, you're closing out that cycle in this lifetime. So sun in the 12th, okay? You're closing out the identity in this lifetime. So the earlier part of your life, you feel invisibilized, okay? Like you're not seen, or if you have Mercury in the 12th, like you're not heard, or whatever it is, okay? So it's like we go through progression. So sun in the 12th goes out of the 12th, and they go into the 1st. Okay, so they kind of come out of this like invisibilized energy where they spent a lot of time dreaming, oh my gosh, like when it's like this and I'm on this stage and I'm doing this and I'm doing this thing. They go into sun in the 1st, okay, when it goes into the progressed sun. Okay, so we go through secondary progressions. You still have your original sun, by the way. It doesn't mean it's done now. It just is an added energy on top. Okay, so when you go into sun in the 1st, now you're shining. Like now I'm here to present and you're, you know, coming to my show now. Like that's sun in the 1st, right? So it's interesting to see because it's like, it depends what degrees. Usually it's the ending degrees of the sun. So you'll see, right? You know, maybe around, I don't know, before I used to think it was Saturn return, but it could be earlier than that. The sun kind of moves out of the 12th into the 1st. But at some point, it's in the earlier part of your life, it comes out of the 12th and it goes into the 1st. So you will be psychically gifted with the loaded 12th house, psychically gifted, intuitively gifted, tapped into the other side, picking up on energies left, right, and center, everyone's energies, right? So that's good or bad, okay? So you're always merging. That's the thing. That's a struggle for the 12th house. You're always going to be merging. That's why you need to know your own energy really well, okay? And that's why substances, because here's the thing with substances, okay? What people need to understand. When you do any sort of substance, and you know what I've noticed is like, even if it's something that becomes repetitive and you're depending on the substance for life force energy, okay? So it could even be coffee. It could be coffee. So a little bit of coffee is fine, right? But if you're depending on it to, let's say, like keep you awake, because with coffee, what happens is like, if you're not, okay, so what happens with coffee is like, if you're drinking too much coffee, and by the way, I used to drink 3 coffees a day, okay? So if you're drinking a lot of coffee, right, you don't get to go into like the deep sleep in the nighttime, okay? And because you're not in the deep sleep in the nighttime, you're missing out on like, again, I'm not a scientist or anything like that. This is just my own observations, okay? So you're not going into the deep sleep in the nighttime, right? And because you're not rested, you're open, right? And then you might go into the cycle of like, you didn't actually get enough sleep, even though you think you did, but you're still running on, like the caffeine is running through your bloodstream, okay? And then you wake up the next day and now you're open, right? Because you didn't sleep properly. Sleep is really, really important, okay? So because of this, then you might pick up on anxiety, because anxiety is a whole conversation of its own. Because anxiety, I find, my own observations, okay, I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I find anxiety is you picking up on people's energies, right? And you don't realize that you're picking up on all these energies. So you want to close up the aura, okay? So anytime, what I've noticed, if you start doing something and it turns into like that quote unquote addictive behavior, so you're doing it repetitively, you're either doing it to soothe something, okay, or you're doing it to, again, depend on it for like a life force energy, let's say like the coffee situation. And again, I'm not a psychologist, medical practitioner, like those are all my disclaimers, okay? This is just what I've observed, okay? So if you're in any of these energies, you're opening yourself up, right? Like energetically, this is all happening energetically, like the aura opens up, right? And then if you're someone who's psychic and intuitive, you're already prone to picking up on everything, right? So when you're opened up, right, let's say you do any sort of substance. So let's say you're going into maybe like actual substances, right? You're leaving your body, right? If it's alcohol, spirits, or whatever, right? You're leaving your body. If it's any other form of drugs or whatever, right? You're leaving your body, right? So when you leave your body, something else can come through, okay? So that's a struggle. So most people don't have the spiritual strength to pull themselves back in. And I'm not trying to say this like a fear type of way. No. Right? I'm just saying that most people aren't aware of these things, okay? So if you're maybe able to pull yourself back in after doing like, congratulations, right? But what happens is you open yourself up and then you're open and then maybe now another entity comes through, right? So you'll see this, right? So you'll see this with people sometimes when there's multiple entities operating through them. If you start paying attention is really what that is. So with that being said, the 12th house person, because they're merging to everything, they could be merging to dark energies around them as well, or another person's dark energies, right? So you'll see what's interesting is like, okay, this is, okay, now I'm going to take you guys into your crown chakras. Okay, I hope you guys are ready. So I've been thinking lately about how like, you know, when people date, right? Like the person is one type of way before they date and they start dating another type of person. And sometimes these people might say things like, oh, like you brought the worst out in me or whatever, like stuff like that, right? So I was thinking and I was like, you know, that probably manifests in codependent and narcissistic dynamics, okay? And I was thinking and I was like, usually the narcissistic person, I have a video on this on my YouTube channel, by the way, it's in my miscellaneous playlist and it's called The Metaphysical Perspective of Narcissism or something like that. Metaphysical perspective, okay? Metaphysical, it's not psychological, okay? Or psychology or whatever. So the narcissistic person, okay, they're an empty vessel in a way because for whatever reason they've been opened up, and you can also be opened up through trauma, and that's a whole different conversation of its own. I have a video on that too, okay, on my metaphysical playlist. Anyways, I digress. So the narcissistic person, okay, they have entities operating through them, okay? So the entities are operating through a narcissistic person, and then the codependent person has a wound happening, right? So the codependent person's wound could be abandonment. Maybe they don't want to be alone, or maybe the codependent person is looking for validation. They want someone to validate, you know, something positive within them, or whatever it is. Maybe they're looking for love. Maybe they had lack of love when they were growing up, so they're looking for it on everybody that's not them. It could be this. It could also be just like, again, putting it on another person, like whatever it is, right? Any of these things. So codependency in relationships is another form of addiction as well, okay? So that's a whole conversation of its own. So what I was thinking about is like sometimes a codependent person, I see them as energetically poor sometimes. So what happens with them is like they don't have a strong solar plexus, so they don't have a strong identity, and then they don't have strong boundaries, right? But what happens is sometimes they tend to be psychic, and they tend to have a lot of light energy, and they tend to be porous, right? Like, you know, it's like, the only way I can explain it is like, it's the sacral chakra, and it's like water that's overflowing, right? It's all of this like unhealed feminine energy is really what that is. So whatever, the narcissistic person latches on because whatever their reason is, they want someone to siphon the energy off of. And then what happens sometimes is like the codependent person merges to the narcissistic person. And what I was thinking about was like that person takes on the narcissistic person's traits, but that's not who the codependent person is. They've merged. I hope that makes sense, right? So it's really interesting to see how the energy like gets shifted and like misplaced. Yeah, so this is happening all the time on this earth plane, like the misplacing of energies and being placed, it's scapegoat. So that's kind of what's happening. So what's really, really interesting with all of that is like, again, you want to learn who you are, right? And develop a strong solar plexus and figure out like, this is who I am as a person, and these are my likes, wants, and needs and desires. So if you do end up in a situation like that, you can cut it off before it gets to that point, okay? Anyways, that's my whole dissertation of that. Oh my gosh, you're off the dating app. Yay. Oh my gosh, you know, were you in that chat when we were talking about online dating? Yeah, so you know what's so annoying? That video didn't end up saving. It didn't end up saving. It was so good. It was so fire, that whole live that we all did together. I'm so glad, and I think everyone should, especially women. That's just my own opinion. I think everyone should be off the apps because there's several reasons. I don't know if I should go on my tangent again. If you guys want me to, I will. Let me go back up to see who I missed up here. So one of you guys asked for tips for Virgo. I don't know if you're still in the room. Basically, whatever I said to the Virgo rising person is going to apply to you in a way, right? So Virgo people, like what I've noticed with them is like they end up in situations where, okay, so the thing that starts with them from the childhood is the competence thing, okay? So whatever, maybe that's how you get the attention from the parents or like the admiration or the love or whatever, right? Again, I'm not a psychologist, what I've observed, okay? So the Virgo person starts off being super, super competent, and then throughout their life, right, they somehow bring through incompetent people. Like they somehow attract these incompetent people into their life for, I guess, a few reasons. Like I guess the Virgo person kind of feels like they have to do everything on their own because of that whole parental reason. Like the parents were probably like, you're fine, I don't have to worry about that child. It could be this. Also for the Virgo person, it could be like, you know, there's a whole control thing that's going on. You could also attract like partners who eventually kind of give up. You know what I mean? So it's that whole chicken and the egg thing. It's like maybe the Virgo person attracts incompetent people, or eventually the person's kind of just like gives up and is like, well, nothing is perfect enough for the Virgo person, because the Virgo person is also always seeking perfection, and they can become very critical. So it could be one of these things, or you could, it depends on your whole chart, right? It doesn't always have to mean this, right? Maybe you have other placements that cancel that energy out, but I've noticed with Virgo critical energy, that's what tends to happen, right? Sometimes they have the partner that eventually kind of surrenders and is like, okay, well, everything that I've tried, the Virgo person either comes in and fixes or changes or criticizes it, right? That's the shadow of Virgo. That's where Virgo struggles. So Virgo is kind of here to master and learn that perfection doesn't exist, okay? That's the whole thing. So that's the biggest thing that Virgo is learning on this earth plane. So they're always seeking perfection. They're trying to get in. They're trying to be better and whatever. It can manifest so many different ways. If we look at like back in the day when I was in like all the entrepreneurial groups, they would talk about like personal development, okay? These days, everyone calls it healing. Whatever it is, okay? Different groups have their own terms for it, but everyone's always trying to be better, right? So that's very Virgo-esque, right? They get stuck in this, like trying to be this better version and better, right? Because it bounces off of Pisces. So you always want to look at the oppositional energy as well, right? With Pisces, you go into the dreaming, right? So you're really connecting with the higher self. So it's like you can see who you could be, right? So you're trying to always grasp that. It doesn't mean you can't. It's just like with Virgo, the question always comes down to like, at what point is it enough? Is really what that is. At what point is like the fifth house, you know, like the fifth house you bought, right? At what point is like that gonna satisfy you, right? Or whatever, like the fifth car or watch or whatever it is, right? Like they're always trying to do better. So they're always changing jobs, or they're always doing like renovations. Like they're always trying to fix things, right? Because they're trying to get to this perfection, but it's like they're meant to learn that perfection doesn't exist. So that's the struggle. Yeah, absolutely. They're always trying to be better. Yeah, I messaged them. I'm like, where's my live? So only like 1 minute and 47 seconds of the live saved. And I was like, it was such a fire live. We even talked about Harry Potter and the connections between Harry Potter and millennials. Like it was so good. It was literally one of my favorite lives. And of course, this is how the MATRX always ends up messing with things. You said it means you don't see your matches unless you subscribe. Oh, okay, so you have to pay for it is basically what that is. Absolutely not. Absolutely, like, no. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. Yes, definitely. If you guys are interested in your own natal chart readings, it's going to be, like, if you want me to do a natal chart reading for you, it's on my website. Self-healing journey can heal. Yes, it can turn toxic because it's like, it goes into that vibe that it's like, there's always something better and you're always trying to improve. And it's really interesting. When I hear people say you need to heal, it's frustrating. Exactly. And that is one of the female, like feminine energy wounds, okay? So we all have the energies within us, yes, but sometimes you're gonna see certain people have more of the energy within them. But that comes through with the whole feminine energy. So you know what's interesting? There's this person who popped up on my For You page and I loved what she was talking about. She was basically saying how when we look at spirituality, and like, first of all of the gurus were always men and masculine, right? And they always talk about dissolving the ego. And it's so interesting because, you know, before I even saw her video, I always talked about developing the solar plexus chakra, right? Having that strong like boundaries and these types of things. And she was saying in her video that women, right, or people who operate predominantly out of the feminine energy actually don't need to dissolve their ego. They need to develop the ego. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never heard something more facts. When I was talking about like solar plexus chakra or whatever, I was like, you know, I was thinking it, but she just put it into words like so eloquently. So yes, it's interesting to see because it's like, you know, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like if you look at like things in the eyes of the creator, like everyone's divine, right? And unfortunately, like, you know, a lot of the whole like new age spirituality is always like manifest this and manifest that. Like they use these buzzwords, but it's like a lot of those people who are talking about manifestation and these types of things are people who come from wealthy families, right? So I would love to see how these manifestation tactics that they're all talking about and like the whole, you know, like morning routine that they post and I'm doing this, like, okay, if it's helping you, that's great. Like, you know, keep doing it, right? But it's like, it gets toxic because it's like, you actually can't have everything you want in the current structure that we're in, the current energetic structure that we're under. Like it's Saturnian, right? That's why astrology pans out, right? Because there's a code, right? We want to break out of the code. That's the whole thing here, what I've discovered, right? We want to learn how to break free from the code that's imposed on us, right? So like it's true and it's not true, but under the current energetic structure that we're under, you can't manifest everything, right? Because then you'd have people in third world countries manifesting, right? You know what I mean? So it goes toxic in that direction as well. So it's really interesting. You said it's gaslighting. You said it's, hey, Ali, how are you doing? You said it's gaslighting into delusion, causing further anxiety. Yeah, okay, so, oh my gosh, yeah. So that's a whole conversation. It's so interesting you bring that up. That's a whole conversation topic of its own for people who are overall really interested and attracted to modern age spirituality. So within spirituality, like a lot of new age topics do bounce off of old age topics. So there is that, right? But it's like, there's a lot of things, if you really want to learn about these things, you need to actually sit down and learn, right? So you want to read about theology and you want to read about esotericality. Like you want to learn about everything as much as you can, right? If you look at like the way it's marketed and advertised, it kind of like pries on a certain group of people, right? That are in a way vulnerable. So that's how cults get formed, right? I recently watched Twin Flames Universe. Have any of you guys watched Twin Flames Universe? I'm curious to hear your opinions on that. I watched it all in one sitting because that's just my Scorpio vibe. I get so curious. I was like, I need to see how this ends. Because I was like, how does this happen? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do people, first of all, give so much of their power away, right? And this comes back down to that solar plexus chakra. You want to develop that strong solar plexus chakra. You don't want to give your power away to anybody, right? Anything. You know, you want it to be within yourself and trust yourself and trust your intuition. That's, I think, one of the biggest struggles currently in society is the separation from the intuition and the intuitive part of the self and the feeling part of the self, right? Because it's that gut feeling that's going to tell you this is right and this is wrong, you know? Oh, you guys did? You said, should we? You said it looks incredibly dark. Yeah, I don't know. It depends, like, I don't know what to say because I got a bunch of Scorpio energy in my chart, so that kind of stuff I'm okay with. But if it's like too intense like that, like maybe don't. I don't know. But yeah, it's about cults and like how cults, I mean, they don't talk about how cults are formed, but yeah, that's kind of what it's about. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Let me just go back up. Let's see. I don't know if some of you guys are still in the room. Yes. Oops. I scrolled down. Let me see what you guys are saying in here. You've been told you have a lot of hard angles in your chart. Lilith and Pisces in the 10th house. Lilith and Pisces in the 10th house. Okay, so the shadow here, you want to see what's the shadow, right? So everything that I was saying about escaping through the crown, and Pisces sometimes, like the shadow Pisces is sometimes looking for other people to lead them. They're looking for someone to contain them. That's something to keep in mind, okay? Substances, again, for Piscean energy is always something to watch out for, okay? 10th house Lilith is really interesting, okay? Because 10th house Lilith will do anything they can to get to the top, okay? So sometimes this energy can go into like sleeping their way to the top, okay? I'm not saying this is you. It's just how the energy can manifest because it's the dark side, right? So the dark side of the self could be this, doing anything to get to the top, you know, anybody that's in your way, you'll trample over them. So that's the dark side. You just have to keep this in mind. Scorpio 12th house, so you unconsciously behave like a Scorpio. You said finishing grad school next year and plan to hit the ground running, work from home, all that. 84 for Saturn return. It's approximately, I think it's every 27 years, okay? So the first one is usually around age 27, okay? And then we add 27 on top of that. That's going to be 54. If you live up until that age, you would have gone through 3 different Saturn returns. Let's see. Gemini in the 11th house. Oh my gosh, are you still in the room? These are all the older questions. Okay, Gemini in the 11th house to network. Okay, so the 11th house are going to be the types of people that you are attracting, right? In the sense where it's like these people are going to be interested in, maybe let's say you have a business, right? So the 11th house people are going to be like the people you want to market to, right? So if you have Gemini in here, I actually have a video on this. It's called What Kind of Following Would You Have Based on Your 11th House? So Gemini in the 11th house, the people you would be marketing to are Gemini-like types of people, okay? So people who want to talk, people who are intellectual, right? They want to learn a lot of things. You know, maybe you have a lot of different things going. You're really chatty. You want to talk about this. You want to talk about that. You want to talk about the periodic table. You want to talk about whatever, right? That's Gemini in the 11th house. Gemini in the 11th house also can be through siblings, okay? So maybe you'll meet people through your siblings. There could be this as well. And also, it's going to be the written or the spoken word. So people who like to write also. Maybe people who like poetry also, okay? Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Oh, good. You're still in the room. That's awesome. Yeah, so I have a video on that. So the 11th house can also tell you what kind of friends or what kind of friends you would be. It tells us a lot. Let's see. I'm just going back up to see where was I. Pisces rising, Aries, Saturn conjunct Moon. I think we did you already. Let's see. Okay, what do you think about Aries and Saturn and the 12th house ruler in the 7th house? 12th house ruler in the 7th house. That's a lot of karma that you're clearing through relationships. And then you have Saturn. So Aries, Saturn, 12th house ruler in the 7th house. Yeah, that's, you said you're really liking Placidus. You think Placidus, okay, wait, hold on. We did these ones already. Because I bounce back and forth sometimes between the bottom and the top. And then I go back to the bottom. Let's see. Where was I? Thank you. Aries are so good and impulsively. Oh my gosh, I'm dead. Aries are so good at impulsively leaving a relationship. Yeah, Aries can be very impulsive. Like they can be one and done. Yes, that's true. Your moon is in Taurus in the 4th house. What is this energy? Moon in Taurus. There's a lot of moon in Taurus today and moon in the 4th house. So, okay, when you guys have your moon in the 4th house, that's like karma with the mother, okay? So it could be like you're really attached to the mom, okay? And you need to cut the cord, right? So sometimes for moon in the 4th house, depends on the rest of the natal chart. Like sometimes, right? It could also be like, you know, maybe the mother wasn't around when you were growing up, and like when you're older, and maybe like, because it's moon in Taurus, right? Maybe she was working, for example, and, you know, like not with you, and then maybe when you're older and she's more financially like stable, right? Let's say this, now you kind of are repairing that relationship where you kind of missed out on the time with the mother. I hope that makes sense, right? But it can go into too much of that, to the point where it's like you have to learn how to cut the cord, right, with the mother. So it's like there's always a love for the mother. With 4th house Cancerian energy, like there's always the love for the mother there, and there's always like the lack, in a way, like the lack of the maternal love. Like there's still, like, even if there was so much of it, right, because the 4th house Cancerian person needs a lot, right? So you'll notice this could be in your relationships as well, right? You could constantly be looking for this, and it could also go into codependency as well. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. Libra rising. Okay, what I'll say for Libra rising. Oh no, I didn't miss you. I just go back and forth. So what happens when this chat starts rolling, I go down and see what you guys are saying, and then I see something in the middle. But I always go back to where I was, so I will always get to your guys' questions. So Libra rising, okay, Libra rising struggles with the sense of self, okay? Because it's like the 1st house is where you develop who you are, right? I'm this person, you know, this is my identity. Libra makes their identity through other people. So that's the struggle for Libra rising, okay? The identity is through other people. So the question for Libra rising is, who are you when nobody's around? So Libra rising can struggle with codependency also. So a lot of these placements in their own way can struggle with codependency, but Libra doesn't want to be alone ever. So Libra rising is always going to be looking for a buddy or a friend or a partner. Like they're always looking for another person. They're always looking for that unit, right? Because their identity is through other people, right? That's why they always joke around, like when people make memes about Libras, they say that like Libras like are picking up on like, that Libras pick up on like the current personality trait that they like this week, and they like take it as if it's their own, right? So figuring out who you truly are, like the strong sense of self. So the signs that kind of have to really figure out who they truly are Pisces, Libra. I'm also going to put Cancer in there because Cancer can also merge. Scorpio doesn't have too much of this problem because Scorpio is like in the corner, kind of like plotting something always. What are some placements that could indicate a younger partner? That's a really good question. A younger partner, let me think. I would have to think about that one. A younger partner, I would have to think about that one. Let's see. You have Chiron and Scorpio in the 11th house. I knew you guys were gonna die. The corner plotting. Scorpio is always plotting something. Like sometimes they're like doing it for no reason. Like it's like, what are you even plotting for anymore? Do you know what I mean? It's like world domination. Like that's what they're plotting for something always. Okay, so speaking of Chiron and Scorpio in the 11th house, Chiron is the area that you guys heal through, okay? So where you guys have Chiron in your natal chart, you're healing through this area. So Chiron in Scorpio is healing through Scorpio-like things, okay? So like I mentioned, plotting. I mean, I'm joking, but you know, Chiron and Scorpio is going to heal through maybe astrology, okay? Maybe through sex is going to be healing for Chiron and Scorpio, okay? Anything to do with psychology or money, but like other people's money is usually Scorpio, but still, as long as you're, you know, making money and having money come through, energy work, energy healing, Reiki, like all these things are going to be very healing for Chiron and Scorpio, okay? 11th house is going to be through maybe your friends, friend groups, the internet could be very healing for you. It could be through humanitarian issues. Maybe you're really into like animal activism. That could be healing for you. These types of things, okay? Philanthropy. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? I'm just going back up. You said also without deep sleep, your muscles don't release toxins. Yes, okay, so that's when I was talking about the caffeine thing. Exactly, okay? So I noticed that firsthand in myself because I used to drink coffee like all the time. Like literally I would drink like 3 larges. I also really liked iced coffee, so sometimes I'm sad that I don't drink it in the afternoon anymore, but it is what it is. Now I literally have like this much in the morning. I guess you could even call it an espresso shot, and like that's it. And you know what's interesting? I literally noticed the crash like in the afternoon when like the caffeine wears off. But it is what it is. So I noticed that within myself. So the whole reason why I ended up fully giving up coffee was because when I gave up coffee, like to that extreme that I was drinking all the time, I was able to go into the deep sleep and I was able to start dreaming. And then I was like, okay, this wins. I would rather have this than be hyper all day. Not to mention, like, I'm already super hyper, right? So the caffeine would just make me like even more hyper. And like at the same time, I don't understand why I was like doing the most, because I was working at 1.9 to 5 and then like 5:30 to 10. I don't know, whatever. Like I was doing the most, right? That's why I was like drinking so much coffee. But after I kind of like stopped, right, I was able to start dreaming. So yeah, it really makes a difference, okay? And you'll see it in your overall energetic field. Like you'll be able to kind of go into more of like that resting, right, energy. You said you started to drink nothing but decaf. Yeah. You said you leave your jobs a lot. Yes, I don't remember what we were talking about then, but I agree. Let's see. Moon in the 4th house, Capricorn. Moon in Capricorn. Moon in Capricorn can be an absence, like emotionally, of the mother. I find that Moon in Capricorn people are very like, okay, with Moon in Capricorn people, like they really like when people like, okay, quality time is going to be one of their love languages for Moon in Capricorn, okay? Because for whatever, and it's like when people notice those small things about them, like they'll like these things, okay? Because it's like Moon in Capricorn didn't get that in one way, shape, or form. Like maybe the mother was working all the time, or maybe she was busy doing her own thing, like whatever it was, okay? Also, Moon in Capricorn and money's on your mind at all times, right? So there's that. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? 7th house, Cancer Mars this week. I don't think that it is. I mean, I will say Cancer Mars is a struggle. What you want to do is balance the energy within. So it's interesting. I was saying this to someone earlier. Like with a Cancer Mars, you want to see how Capricorn Mars operates, okay? So you want to act like, I don't want to say you want to act, but you want to pull from Capricorn Mars energy, because Cancer Mars wants to chill and they want to go with the feeling, and I don't feel like it today, and I want to just watch movies all day, which is fine. Sometimes you need those days, don't get me wrong. But if you're trying to get a goal, because Mars is about goals, right? And if you're trying to go after something and whatever, right? The Cancer Mars is going to struggle in that area, right? Because of the feeling aspect of things. So there's that. I have a video on my YouTube channel on Cancer Mars if you want to learn more. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? You said, I keep clicking on this thing so the questions keep leaving. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? You said Mercury in Capricorn in the 6th house. Also, Mercury in Capricorn is very grounded. Money's on your mind. You, Tamron, you have a lot of like money, wealth, gains, climbing the social ladder in your natal chart, okay? The 6th house is the healing house. What I will say for Mercury in the 6th house though, is like this energy can really go into overthinking, okay? Like they can really go into like too much in the mind, but like the logical part of the mind, okay? Also because it's in Capricorn. So just something to keep in mind. Because sometimes Mercury in the 6th house can like, I don't know how to explain it, like they go too much into like the analytical thinking, right? Mercury in the 12th, too much in the crown of like the dreaming. Mercury in the 6th, too much in the analytical, right? Like, you know, like analyzing everything, like going too much into the logical, right? But yeah, so overall in your natal chart, from what you've said so far, Tamron, like a lot of like the life purpose here is to make money, get the gains, get the wealth, you know, like, and it's your own, right? So that's kind of, I guess, what you're working toward in this lifetime. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Let's see. Yeah, okay. Just because I'm scrolling and I'm seeing what you guys said earlier about the whole you need to heal thing. Yeah, so here's the thing. This is the way that I see it, okay? So one of the main things, like with a quote-unquote healing journey that I see is the benefit of it is to get in tune with your psychic gifts and abilities, right? But it's like you get to the point where it's like, okay, but how much more information do you need? You know what I mean? It's so funny. I was just thinking this before I came on the live earlier, and it's like, you know, somebody, I don't know where I saw it. Basically what they were saying was like, oh, I'm so sick of the lessons. The same kind of lessons keep coming toward me and whatever, right? And it's like, you know, with astrology, you'll see that just because it's in your energetic field, that loop will always keep repeating. Sometimes there isn't even anything to learn anymore. It's just because it's in the energetic field. It's in your natal chart, right? So for example, I don't know, let's say you have Capricorn in your 7th house, right? You're always going to attract Capricorn types of people. You know what I mean? So it's like you can become aware and heal in that way where it's like I'm not engaging with this negative energy where it's going to drain me. Yes. One of you guys said you leave your jobs too so much that you're currently jobless. Yeah, okay. Here's my opinion on that because I used to change my jobs a lot. I've worked at 13 jobs in my life. I have a YouTube video on that as well. I used to leave a lot of jobs. At one point I had like, you know, those like tax forms for the jobs. It was like 4 in 1 year. And one of the jobs I worked for one day, I don't know if I included that in my 13 jobs. Maybe I did. But one of the jobs I worked for one day because it was a nonprofit or a non-for-profit. And I was so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so different than the corporate. And it's literally the same, except it's called nonprofit, okay? So this is the way that I've seen it, okay? Sometimes you have to redirect your priorities, okay? So I find that like when you're leaving the jobs a lot, it's because the focus is on the job and not so much on what you want to be doing with that money, if that makes sense. So it's like if you're working at a job and the job is funding you to do something else, then you're not focused on the job anymore and it's just like a means to an end to do the other thing, okay? That's kind of how I've like put it, right? But when you kind of get sucked too much into the job, well, at that point, you kind of think that that's all that you're doing. You know what I mean? A lot of it is connected to quote unquote purpose. Like if you feel like you're doing something that's your purpose, it doesn't have to be your job, if that makes sense, right? So it's like the job can just be the money. Let's say it's funding you for a period of time. Let's say you're an artist, or let's say you're, I don't know, a model, whatever it is, right? Let's say you're an actor. A lot of actors do like bartending or they do like serving, like whatever, right? So it's like, yeah, sometimes you have to reshift the focus. So there's that. You say, can you avoid the same energy repeating? You find some people take advantage. It's very negative. Honestly, I don't know what to say because I feel like sometimes the same people are going to be sent to you and you just have to not engage with them is really what that is because it's in your field. Do you know what I mean? So that's where the quote unquote, I guess, healing and transmuting can come in, or like awareness where you're like aware of it and you don't engage in it. Let's say it's like people who have narcissistic traits, right? There's this, but I don't think it's like sometimes people, you know how like also in like the healing community or whatever, they're gonna say like you're attracting them into your life because you have to change something within yourself. The more I learn astrology, the more I just feel like that's just the energetic code. Do you know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. Like it's something that's in your field. It's not something that you're doing. It's just there, right? Because that's just the energetic code that you were born under, right? So you cannot engage with them. It's so interesting. Yeah, that's all that you can do. Okay, so you know what's interesting? The only way that I can, because I was thinking about this earlier. And the example that I was thinking about was, I don't know if any of you guys have watched the movie A Beautiful Mind. So if you guys have watched the movie A Beautiful Mind, he's basically schizophrenic, right? And in his, like in the movie, there's these people that he always sees, right? And then what ends up happening is like, and I don't know, this is like a, what's it called? Spoiler alert. I don't know. For people who want to watch the movie, you can click off now. But in the movie, what ends up happening is like, so he goes through this whole battle with these people that he's seeing and then realizes that he's not actually seeing them, whatever, right? So there's that part of the movie, and then there's the end part of the movie where it shows you that he still sees those people, right? But he's just not engaging with them anymore, okay? Yes, it's with Russell Crowe. Oh my gosh, the movies back in the day were so good, okay? They were so good. So it's interesting because it's like, that's kind of how I see that energy, right? It's like the energy might still be around, right? But you don't have to engage in it. You could just be like, I don't claim this anymore, right? Yeah, he learns to live with it. Exactly. It's a really, really good movie. Oh my gosh, I love that movie. Maybe I should watch it again. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna sign off now. Make sure you guys check out my YouTube channel, Barbara Talks. My second YouTube channel, Barbara Talks Some More. I started a second one, okay, where I'm gonna be doing public figure natal chart readings. Check out my merch store. Check out my readings if you guys want one. It's gonna be on my website. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your likes, for your shares, for subscribes, and have a beautiful rest of your evening. It's called A Beautiful Mind. The movie is called A Beautiful Mind. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a good night.